in 1948, there was the Nakba, that's what we call it, and he had to walk pretty much with his family to Lebanon.
On his feet,
On
just
his
walk.
feet. Actually, his family went on feet, and he tells me the story of one time of as they were moving away from their home, a person on a horse. And my grandfather said, "Please take my son, he can't walk." And then he took him over, put him on a rock. And my dad sat there for hours waiting for his parents to catch up.
Welcome to the Pioneers of Possibility podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Afzal, and today I'm really thrilled to have Ghassan Sleiman, the Chief Technology Officer of First Element Fuels, with us. Here at the podcast, we dive into the lives of our guests to learn about their experience that shaped them and enable them to transform themselves, their communities, and their organizations. Ghassan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kareem. I've known you for what now? 20 years? I think we started our first time we met was over in Chino, working on a Hyundai plant, tiny compressor. Where have we come?
We've come a long way. So our backstory for our listeners is we've quite literally grown up in the energy transition sector, transition called hydrogen energy, which is another energy carrier that can enable clean mobility and energy transition. So tell us a little bit about what First Element does.
Yeah, we foster the widespread adoption of hydrogen across all energy sector with really a focus on the end user. We want to make energy for transportation, for mobility, you name it, affordable, but also less harmful on the planet. We know that if we do these things, we will be able to change the world for the better.
And so what are some of these end-use applications that First Element is enabling?
Yeah, today we're just purely focused on mobility and transportation. Simply put, we put hydrogen fuel into trucks, medium duty and light duty vehicles.
So a light duty vehicle is a passenger car,
Correct.
For example.
Yeah. So SUVs like the Nexo, crossovers like the CRV, or even sedans like the Toyota Mirai.
Excellent. So what we like to do here on the podcast, we like to dive into our formative years and our guest background. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up here.
Wow, how I ended up here. It's I would say mostly positive attitude and luck. I grew up in Kuwait. I was born in Kuwait. My dad was Palestinian, my mom was Bahraini. A very unconventional marriage between these two cultures. I grew up in Kuwait, never felt like it was home. When my sister was coming of age, 18 years old, my parents realized that once she hits that age, she has to leave that country because we were there on a work visa. And so my parents decided Canada was the place to go. We moved to Toronto, Canada. Felt like an outsider, moving from a place where I had family, friends. It was a rough transition, and I would say I didn't find my footing from the time I was 11 till about the time I was 16, 17 in high school, late high school. That's where I found myself. Along the way, my mom worked as an airline, so we traveled a lot.
Okay.
Which I fell in love with travel and airplanes.
So before we get to that, I want to back up a little bit. So your father is Palestinian.
Yes.
And ended up in Kuwait. How did he?
Oh boy. So he was born in 1943. In 1948, there was the Nakba, that's what we call it, and he had to walk pretty much with his family to Lebanon.
On his feet, just walk.
Feet. Actually, his family went on feet, and he tells me the story of one time of as they were moving away from their home, a person on a horse. And my grandfather said, "Please take my son, he can't walk." And then he took him over, put him on a rock. And my dad sat there for hours waiting for his parents to catch up. And then eventually ended up in Lebanon. A lot of turmoil in Lebanon. The PLO was around. A lot of his family was involved in the PLO, fighting the PLO, but my dad chose that wasn't his thing. He went to Egypt, studied engineering, didn't like it so much, moved into healthcare, moved to Libya for a little bit, went to Bahrain, my mom, and eventually ended up in Kuwait because there was good opportunity in Kuwait. Oil money was what's coming in, and they needed good folks. That's how my dad and my mom met and lived in Kuwait.
Okay. And your mom was from Bahrain, and they met in Kuwait. So your mom also came to Kuwait for studies?
Yeah.
Opportunity?
So
work?
My mom also very unconventional. So in Bahrain, very traditional. There's no real oil. Their industry was aluminum at the time. But my grandfather was very different than anybody else. He wanted everybody in that family to be educated. So he educated my uncles, my mother. And my mother, I think, was one of the only people in that community that was actually working at 16, 17 years old. And actually, my dad was working in Bahrain for a while. They met when she was 18, 19. They got married, lived there for a while, and this opportunity in Kuwait happens. So what's interesting about Bahrain is because my mom worked in the airline industry, I would travel quite a bit in the summers to Bahrain and live for a couple of months with my mother's family. What a wonderful time. 7 brothers and sisters,
Big family.
big family, very, very different than your typical Middle Eastern religious, follow the rules kind of family. But really, one thing that struck me, and I still, that those feelings of community, but also giving, are still within me today. I remember my grandfather and my grandmother going around the neighborhood, and they would give me a stack of 100 fils, and 100 fils is like 1 dinar, which is like $1, not $1, but like $10. And he would give me that money and say, "Go give these to the poor." And to that day, I remember that very vividly, and that just stays with me. And my wife and I argue about, Ghassan, why do you give so much? Okay, you don't have to be as nice. And it just always brings me back to how I felt back then.
My father always told that to those who are blessed with abundance, we have a responsibility to always give back, and it certainly
Where I am today.
is where you are today. And certainly your parents have a true story of amazing resiliency,
Yes.
especially how your father bounced around from place to place after the events of the Nakba.
And he had a North Star. He had a North Star to guide him.
And that North Star was
His family. He knew that no matter what, he had to provide for his family, and his kids have to have a normal life. So his whole upbringing being so turmoiled and so chaotic, what he wanted is normalcy for his kids. And that's why he decided to take that leap and move to Canada.
So you moved to Canada when you were how old?
I was 11 years.
11 years old.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Kuwait.
Yeah.
Kind of unconventional. Yeah. You moved to Canada, and you said you really didn't feel settled in the early going.
No. So in Kuwait, we all thought the same culture. Lots of Palestinians. We had some Egyptians. We had some Jordanians, Syrians, but somewhat similar culture. So we can be open and honest with each other. When I came to Canada, again, it was a mixed bag, but we had Europeans, South Americans, Canadians.
But let's talk about English, right? So, I mean, Canada is obviously in English. You grew up in a family that probably spoke Arabic within the household. When were you taught English?
Oh, no, I grew up speaking English.
You grew up speaking English. Okay.
Yeah. So that was easy, but I had an accent, and I was made fun of at school for having the accent. And when
in Kuwait or Canada?
In Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So in Canada, when we moved, I was made fun of. The thoughts that I would say were so different than the thoughts of kids of that time and age. And kids at that age can be mean. And all you want to do when you're at that age, as you're entering puberty, is fit in. And I found it really difficult to fit in. I remember the first few weeks at school, I would cry at school. And that was really tough.
When did you begin to think of your life's path, right? So were you a technical guy?
Yeah.
Were you a good writer?
Yeah. So
when did you get the love for engineering?
Honestly, I don't know, but my mom didn't like me going out too much when I was younger. She feared that I would get, I don't know, kidnapped by Western society or the kids on the streets. But she tells me that when I was 5 years old, I took apart our VCR. So kids, VCR is a big tape thing. The VCR, I took it apart and put it back together. That when the VCR tape would come apart, I would take the tape apart, tape them together, and put them. So I've always had that technical problem-solving nature. I also love helping people. From my story earlier, I love helping people. And I think helping people is really part of leadership. And that's how I ended up where I am. I remember my first review at work. They asked me, Ghassan, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I want to lead a technical team in an area. 10 years, I want to be the guy. And somehow it happened.
Well, you certainly had made that happen. So you started your career in Canada.
Yeah.
And did you start your career at Stewart Energy?
Yeah. So before finishing school, I worked as an intern in Steward Energy.
And for our guests,
Yeah.
for our listeners, just tell a bit about what
Yeah.
Stewart Energy does.
It's an electrolyzer company, so they make electrolyzers, which makes hydrogen basically and sells them
From water.
from water across the entire world. And that was my first job, and I fell in love with hydrogen because I really thought that it's a great energy carrier, and it was a cool job, exciting. Before I graduated and before I finished my internship, I got to travel to Egypt, where they just threw me there and said, "Go figure it out.
Make this thing work."
Make this thing work." I had 3 days of training on a machine I've never seen in my life. My boss obviously not my boss, my supervisor that was there did not want to be away from home.
So he sent you.
So he sent me.
He sent the Arabic speaking guy.
He said the Arabic speaking guy, and he gave me one piece of advice: say whatever you say it with great confidence. and that was great. That was the best advice. I remember being asked a question I didn't have the answer to, but I said it with great confidence, and the guy never came back. And that
was it the right answer?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
Okay. But anyway, he never. And I use that thing to this day when I don't know something, but the answer is irrelevant to the outcome, where I feel that I'm arguing with somebody for the sake of arguing. I just get really confident.
We've had that.
Yeah.
In our interactions.
Obviously, me and you and your brother Mateen, negotiating contracts.
Negotiating contracts.
Yeah, we do that.
Little digression. Yeah. So Stewart Energy got bought by another company, Hydrogenics.
Yeah.
And you somehow ended up in California.
Hydrogen was very big in California. It's always been California. California being the state that wants to be less polluting than any other state. Have a green solution and less pollution. And so I was the guy that would go around and fix stations. And so I switched from engineering to field service because I wanted more money and I loved the travel. And I got to travel to all over the world. And when they said California, go fix these machines, I did. And then I told them, guys, why am I flying 80% of the time to California, staying in hotels? Why don't we just set up shop? And I convinced them to, and we did. And then it was my job to find business in California.
So not only were you servicing machines and keeping this product up and running, but you were then starting to find business.
I was doing everything I could to stay in California. And I honed in on not only my technical skills, but management, communication, interpersonal, you name it. I would drive for hours from one customer to another, one site to another. And I'd be thinking, what am I doing wrong and how can I do it better? How could the company do things better? And I started to hone in on a systems approach, which was great for what I do today.
So in the early days, as you were hustling from customer to customer and you were fixing problems along the way, what would you say was your biggest obstacle at that point?
It was the boundary set. Boundary set by head office. Right?
Okay.
Head office said, you have this much money. You can't do this. You can't do this. Your job is this. And I wanted to do more. And I wanted to do a lot more because I thought that I can achieve. I didn't know that I could achieve or couldn't, but I thought I could. And it was wasteful for us not to try that. And I lost faith in the leadership. And when you do that, it's time for a new opportunity. And that's how I ended up here. As they were starting this company, I latched on and I said, this is where I belong.
And these founders came from a kind of an interesting background in their own, right?
Yeah. So Dr. Tim Brown was in Michigan working on gasoline tanks, moved here for his wife. Dr. Shane Stevens was a chemist, moved to California also, went to UCI. They worked on the hydrogen program, and they realized that there was a missing link between hydrogen producers, between the vehicles, and infrastructure. And the infrastructure was the missing piece. And so they decided
how to fuel these to fuel these cars.
Exactly. The piece of how you take the hydrogen that's being made in abundance into these wonderful vehicles, these fantastic vehicles, was how you put them in. And there was a big gap, and they filled it. And they tried to fill it, and that's where I got hired. And they left me alone.
You came to this startup company, and you were given a mission. What were your boundaries?
The boundaries was build the fucking infrastructure.
Okay,
and
build the infrastructure.
The effing infrastructure. Because every time I came up with a problem to my CEO, who was extremely visionary, I would say he was the Steve Jobs of hydrogen, Joel Nowanick. he would just push and push and push. And when you said, I can't do it, he looks at you because he knows, he believes in you. Just the way that you believe in your kids that they can do better than what you do. He just believes in you, and he just kept on pushing you to be extremely uncomfortable and this achieve. And then we build the infrastructure.
So how many stations have you built?
Today we have 40 stations operational. We are about 90% of all fueling in California. We compete against companies like Shell, Chevron, a giant Japanese company, Iwatani, Air Liquide, Air Products, and we are by far the best at what we do. And it's because of hard work.
And how do you define best? So
yeah, the state of California measures uptime. We hear from
so uptime is defined as the availability to fuel a customer.
And by far we're ahead of everybody else, massively ahead of everybody else, like 20 points ahead of everybody else. Our SOCs, state of charge, or how full we get the vehicles is better than the average. And also our stations are better built. They really tend to the needs of the customer as opposed to tend to the needs of the equipment that's available at this time. For example, our stations have 4 fueling positions. The next best has 2.
So fueling positions for our listeners are the pumps, right?
Yeah,
so
the hoses.
The hose that can connect to the vehicle.
Exactly.
In order to fuel.
Yeah, so our stations have 4 hoses, 4 positions that you can go to. And the next best, it has 2, but most have 1.
You were responsible. When you first came in, you were responsible for deploying these stations.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you assumed the role of Chief Technology Officer, where you were responsible for considering the next innovation that would enable this nascent industry to take the next leap.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our company, we're so small that everybody does a little bit of everything. So while I'm CTO, I'm currently actually also interim COO at the company, which is, again, it's a fantastic opportunity. And for your listeners, anybody, whenever you get a chance to do more, do it. Don't worry about the pay. It will come. Keep doing the things that you love and do them wholeheartedly.
That's really a great point for the listeners, because those opportunities, if somebody asks you to do, if your job description is X, but they ask you to do Y and Z and A and B, that means that your leadership believes in you.
That's right.
You can execute on it, because in the end, they have to report to a board. They have to report to their superiors.
And they're putting the best people at it, and that's where they're asking you to go outside of your comfort zone because they believe in you. Quite often today, especially the younger generation, when you ask them to do something outside of their job description, the first reaction is, what's in it for me?
Or they say, this is not my job description.
Oh, this is not my job description. They're very happy with that. So, and that attitude, really, you put a limit on yourself. But when you do without asking and just continue on doing more and more of the things that you know will get you to where you want to be without asking for something in return, something in return will come.
So let's talk about that. So as CTO, you're leading the innovation of the company.
Yeah.
You're leading First Element Fuel to what's next. So let's talk about what you saw as the limitations of your own equipment, the equipment that you were buying, and what you thought would enable scale, right? Because for hydrogen, for EVs, for any industry, scale is really important.
And so we're now working on the 5th generation of stations.
Okay.
And what we've realized in the market, there is not a piece of equipment that meets the consumer needs. That's in terms of how much it's cost to build one of these stations. The equipment is too expensive. Putting it together is too expensive, which makes the fuel dispense or pump too expensive. Also, reliability is not there. Also, the commitment. Most of these companies that make these stations have other business. Case in point, a gas supplier that supplies fuel, for example, their business isn't pumps, but they will build a station so they can sell the fuel. They're not really focused on that business. First Element, on the other hand, we build the station, we procure the fuel. So it's really important for us to keep our costs as low as possible so that it enables us to lower the cost at the pump to really allow hydrogen to become a replacement for diesel and gasoline to achieve our mission that I said at the onset. And we realize it's a huge gap. And so what we've done today with our Gen 5 equipment, being able to fill multiple fueling positions for a very small footprint for a low capital expenditure, but also operational expenditure, it's leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else. I call it, it's the iPhone compared to a flip phone.
So if we were to try to give a frame of reference for our customers, so if Generation 4 was able to fuel, say, 100 vehicles in a day, Generation 5 can do
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah. In the smaller footprint, less power consumption, less capital expenditure, on every metric. We win on every single metric.
Okay. So to bring this to fruition, you had to align a team that, first of all, this is achievable, and that the goal is achievable. So sometimes when I would guide a team, I'd say I'd rather be the guy who got 80% to a lofty goal than set the goal too low, and then you get leapfrogged by somebody else in the industry. So let's talk about the goal setting and then how you align the team to match your vision.
You have to believe in your leadership. So it was not my goal to make this piece of equipment, but my leadership said, go do this. This is what the equipment needs.
Go effing do this?
Go. It was this was more quiet, but it's going to come to go effing do this because we just shipped that equipment for testing. But you have to believe in your leadership. When my leadership said, we need to do this, well, I was resistant because it was scary. They were asking me to guide the ship through the fog to a destination unknown. We had to just go to work. The team and of course I didn't do this myself. We have the world's best talent. Okay. I can put our team against any company out there in the space that we do. It's great. And how do you lead that team? You really have to be empathetic. You can't just push people to the limits. You have to understand who they are, what moves them, what motivates them, what demotivates them. You have to understand your team fully. And you have to have a diverse team. You can't have all go-getters. You can't have all folks that love to
can't be all type A's.
It can't be type A's. It can't be all type B's. You have to have your overachievers, your underachievers. You have to have the folks that want to slow you down, folks that want to speed you up, and get you going. And we have that here. We have a really good diverse group from different backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, you name it. We've built that on purpose. And we didn't know where we're going to end up, but we knew we had a goal, and we just went to work. And it's hard work. You put in the hours, you will achieve. And we have a great partner in one of the largest industrial companies. They're helping us make that package happen. We know hydrogen really well. They know industrialization, and we just put the two together.
And that has gone to market.
That is actually our first unit. We are deploying our first unit in Oakland. It's actually there today. I got drone shots from it.
Okay.
It's available now for purchase. If you guys want to change the world,
if you want to change the world, we'll give websites at the end of the.
But it's available to market now. We're confident enough that it actually works.
And through this, you learned a lot about yourself. You learned a lot about your team. So let's say, number one, what did you learn most about your team? Number two, what did you learn about yourself through driving this level of innovation? Because when you think, 10x in terms of scale, in terms of what this can do, it could really be transformative to a nascent market that is looking for transformative, reliable technologies in order to compete with all of the different incumbent fuels and also the up-and-comers that are coming. So
yeah, absolutely. So on the team, my main goal was to understand how I can get people to do the best that they can do and still be happy and enjoy coming to work. That was my number one. And it involves just understanding the person, who they are, understanding human nature. So I had to do a lot of learning about people, just people in general. You mentioned type A's, type B's. Well, there's also the different animals that the people can be. And that was, to me, the best thing that I could have done is I understand what Tyler could do, what Josh could do, what Adrian can do, where they excel, where they don't. I thought that everybody wanted to overachieve, but I learned that some folks just love being where they are, and that's what they want to do for the rest of their lives. About myself, oh man, I learned a lot because I try to get personal with my team so they can give me honest feedback, and they give me honest feedback.
So what's the toughest love that you've received back?
My reaction to bad news.
Okay.
Yes. And that's a tough one because I do sometimes react when it's a situation I haven't heard of before. And they said I'm not as bad as others, but still I could react a little better.
And how does that manifest itself?
What they said is, Ghassan, when you get upset, you open your eyes, your tone changes, and you talk to us like a disappointed dad. How terrible for an adult to be talked down by their boss like a disappointed dad. Yelling is one thing, but talking to them like a disappointed dad, I mean, that just was a knife in my heart, and that's not the intent. My intent is not to yell and scream, but that to me is the number one thing I'm trying to work on. Where, okay, we have a problem. Let's do what we always do. Let's get over the crescendo of being upset and emotional. And let's go to town. Let's go to work and fix this problem. I learned that I'm not the shit that I thought I was. Well, I think very highly of myself. You know, an immigrant to Canada, a Muslim who doesn't have an accent, who's worked really hard to become where I am. I must know everything. I must know everything. I am the best at what we do, and my ideas are the best. And when my boss tells me something that I don't believe in, he's stupid. But you know what? I'm going to do what he tells me because I believe that you have to follow your leadership.
And he signed checks.
And he signs, well, yes, and he signs checks. And I need to provide for my family. I'm not always right. My ideas are not always the best. And that when somebody comes up with an idea that's not your own and it's better than you do, don't get defensive. Accept it, love him for it or love her for it, and continue. I also learned that the more that I give, it's the more that I get back. But those are the main thing through this journey is really to actively understand what other people are trying to communicate, not with their words, but with their intent.
Ghassan, what would you say is the through line from your family's life and background that you think can help transform our society today? You know, we live in a society at the moment where people on either side of the right-hand side or left-hand side, or even the center side, are frankly not listening to each other. And I think you come from a really fascinating perspective, the true American story, right?
Absolutely. The true American story. If you put your nose to the ground and work really hard, you can achieve. And I still think that's achievable in the USA. Now, what's happening in our country today is that folks are choosing sides. They're choosing sides and they're following those sides without really listening to the other side. So if you're a Republican or a liberal, you're black or white, you're thinking, I must agree with everything on the one side or the other. But the reality is, look at the specifics. Look at the specific issue and understand, where do you lie as a person, not as rich or poor or what's good for me or good for the other, but look at the specific as a person and where do you want it to go? Don't just blindly follow one side or the other. And through that, we will find that you can agree on majority of things and disagree on a few, or you can disagree on things, completely different things, but you can do that in a civil manner. You could do that while still being humorous and jovial. You don't have to get angry about it. You don't have to get violent about it, and you don't have to hate the other party for it. So just respect that there are other points of view than just your own. And I think that's how you can bridge this gap that we have. And we can get into specific cases of how you could do that. Maybe that's another podcast. But that's what I believe.
This bit of active listening is something that I think society is truly challenged on today. And, from wonderful stories from people like yourself and some of our other podcasts, it's my hope that people find inspiration in that to help transform our society.
Yeah, active listening is really difficult. I mean, as you're asking me questions, the first thing I'm thinking is, well, I need to respond back to him. And I'm sure as I am speaking, you're thinking of, what is my next question? That is not active listening. But active listening is really putting yourself in the other person's shoe, understanding where they're coming from. And when you do that, then you can actually have a conversation. But if all you're trying to do is say my point and then you would say your point, there is no communication. And I believe that is where the breakdown is happening today. Have you ever been called a moose face?
I've been called a lot of things.
I've had a friend, okay, and he'd make for everybody.
Being Muslim in a professional field in leadership has taken a lot, especially here, right?
I've never felt racism.
You have not.
Here. I felt it in Egypt, I felt it in Kuwait, but here in the professional world, I've never felt it. I mean, I'm the CTO and interim COO. I could run this company if needed. Not once did I feel that my color, my ethnicity, my religion ever come in the way of my professional ambitions.
You're my second guest who said that, as a guest of color, and who's not, and also not born here, and that's remarkable.
Yeah, and again,
because that isn't the case for everyone.
Whether it's your attitude where you feel that you have a glass ceiling that's holding you back, or the positive and the optimistic attitude that I can achieve as long as I work hard. That's the dichotomy that I see. That the folks that didn't make it imposed a glass ceiling on themselves.
That is a podcast almost all by itself. But when you say go to an African American person, that's not their case, right? They could work hard, they can hustle, but a lot of times they don't have access to the capital, they don't have access to the proper education, their schools suck, right? So somebody who grows up poor in Philadelphia public school system, which is a chronically underfunded educational system, it's like a flip of a coin whether or not they can actually get out of that situation or not.
I agree.
If you consider the arc of your life today, you have 2 wonderful children, happily married here in Southern California. You know, at the arc of your life through your family history and where you are today, what would you think is the number one thing that you brought from your parents that have enabled your success today?
Yeah, from my dad, it's hard work. My dad worked 2 jobs most of his life. We hardly saw him. I would say it's hard work. From my mom, it's discipline. It's really discipline. So it's hard work and discipline that I learned from my mom and dad. And then my wife brings in a little bit more flexibility, but love and nurture. And I don't know how you are with your wife, but you also have 2 beautiful kids who are in college and going to be leaders of society.
We hope so.
Yeah. But that was wonderful. That was really wonderful that we're different. We have things in common that allow us to bring up this wonderful family.
And when you look on your career, what would you consider your biggest accomplishment, and where are you heading next?
Yeah. No, I often look back and think that this is it. I'm happy. I've achieved what I've set off in my first interview, where I've said in 20 years I want to be here. In 20 years I am here, and I'm ready now to give back. If folks want to learn how to get to this place or my way of thinking, and if that is something that that resonates with you as a young person, then let's have a conversation. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, the way that I came to be isn't right for everybody. Some folks, this is their pathway, and some folks choose a different pathway. But there are some universal truths, and that is hard work is absolutely needed to be successful.
Ghassan Sleiman, thank you so much for being on the show. Lessons for all of us to really take to heart in order to transform society and ourselves.
Thank you, Kareem. This was fantastic.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Yes.
This episode of The Pioneers of Possibility has been produced and edited by Danny Vagnoni, with music credits going to the artist known as Sakhari. And artwork for our podcast is presented by the artist known as Layla. I'm your host, Kareem Afzal. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode and you would like to hear more from future episodes, please follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and click the subscribe button on YouTube. And please leave a comment so we can engage our listeners. Thank you very much. See you next time.